live at this point. Yes,
okay.
We're live.
Oh,
Welcome everyone. Second stream of the day. So yeah, we have our guest I wasn't expecting to have on. So I'm very happy that he accepted and that we can. Our guest today is, and we talked about this, I'll introduce you as Max Kolbe, correct?
yeah, thank you. Nice to see you. Gonna go for it.
By the way, sorry, I hadn't introduced myself. I'm Peter.
Hey, Peter. Good to meet you. Good to talk to you face to face, as opposed to just on Twitter, which is, of course, as everybody knows, a big shit posting arena.
It can be at times, yes. I would agree with that.
Well, that's certainly
So,
what we do on my team with it anyway, and that's what a lot of other people do with it. So,
okay, for people who wouldn't know you, can you give us a short introduction, who you are and what you do?
oh well, I'm the head of a team who does stuff on Twitter. We're known either as the Max Kolbe Group, which is named after Maximilian Mary Kolbe, a Catholic priest who was martyred at Auschwitz. That was the original Max Kolbe. That's why we flash that thing that says "Who is Max Kolbe" on it. I am the founder of the Escaping Atheism Project. I'm an ex-atheist. Our group, I've actually lost count because we got a Facebook group, we got the Twitter group, we got the YouTube group, we got different people in different projects. We got about a dozen, 13, 14, something like that. Not all Christians, but we're highly critical of militant atheism, movement atheism, and what we see as its effect on the culture. We are not all Christians. We have one Gaelic pagan, an agnostic, kind of theistic leaning agnostic. We have an actual atheist, a philosophical theist who's an ex-Christian, and we're all reunited over the fact that we see ideological atheism as nothing like it was when I was a kid and when I was an atheist myself, and extremely political, extremely rabid, of tending to go out and give terrible misinformation about religion and religious people. And what we all notice is that religious people had been trying to be nice about it for quite some years now, only to be ignored. So we decided we were going to emulate the new atheists in just about every way. We were going to emulate Christopher Hitchens, Daniel Dennett, Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, to some extent Penn Jillette, and others in the current atheist community. And we were going to see how atheists responded to being treated the way we perceive them as treating religion and religious people. And I would even say that when we began, we were a lot nicer, and now we're just kind of balls out mean most of the time and don't care, because it seemed like nobody actually wanted to have the real conversation. And the young atheists, especially millennial age, seem to have been taught that you're great if you're out there being loud and obnoxious. So we decided to try it. And it's been successful, not so much financially, but so far, although it's growing, because we got even, atheists who are sick of atheist crap. And so that's what we do. We're working on multiple projects. We got a website, we got a Patreon, we got a Facebook group. We do a lot on Twitter and YouTube. Probably going to start up a Twitch channel soon. So that's basically who we are.
So, well, there are a couple of things in there that I would want to address during the conversation. There are a lot of things that I wouldn't directly agree with. But I grew up in an atheist country, in an atheist community, going to secular schools. So the first time that I heard that people called atheism a religion was a couple of years ago, because it doesn't say anything to me. There's nothing that makes me an atheist here in Holland. Here in Holland, I'm just the regular. It's the default position, and here it is exactly that. It's the default position, because
It,
religion.
it's very indoctrinated
Uh,
into you from childhood. Yes.
there was no indoctrination, because I didn't even know the word.
What did you think religion was?
I,
What were you
I
taught about religion?
well, I can be honest with you, and I've told this. I don't know if we did that live or we did that in the short talk we had afterwards. But I've names now. The only time that I've been in a church service was in the Catholic Church, when the wife of a good friend passed away, and they had a funeral service. So that's the only time that I've been in a church in an actual. Was in the Catholic Church.
Yeah, the Netherlands has de-Christianized in a lot of ways. You're in the Netherlands, right? Is it the Netherlands?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
From what I read, yeah. It doesn't surprise me. There's a lot of young Europeans and a growing number of young Americans grown up with no exposure to religion.
So wouldn't you consider that a lack of indoctrination versus the presence of it?
No, because what usually comes with it is indoctrination from the state about science, about history, and about religion itself. I'm sorry, it is a form of indoctrination from everything I've seen. That's where you get these weird talking points that religion was this oppressive force that science overcame, which is nonsense. Religion and science are in conflict. It's nonsense. Evolution and religion are in conflict. It's mostly nonsense. Religion is dangerous and evil and dangerous and brainwashing and violent, and that's mostly garbage too. And the atheist worldview is an atheistic worldview. Most of you, I think, as I was, were indoctrinated in what I'd call scientific naturalism, which is something you see all over the media these days. And scientific naturalism is nonsense.
Yep, Max. But listen, what you're telling me now is not how it works here. It's as such isn't even addressed. It isn't addressed in schools. It isn't addressed in homes. It isn't addressed. The subject of there being a God just doesn't come up.
Yep, I've heard
at least
very commonly in the culture. Yep.
At least that's how I grew up, and there was no indoctrination, not in way, not even in school. When we had history, then religious wars were of course were brought up and were taught about. So in a very tiny part, the Christianity and how that came to be, but it's not even a subject in schools here.
Which is a terrible lack, a terrible lack in your education. But sure, I mean, I can believe you went all the way through school and had almost no exposure. And I know in Europe it's very common for it to almost be verboten to speak of the spiritual out loud. I know because European religious people often complain to me about it, and to others. I think what you're going to find is that first off, there's probably more religion running around the Netherlands than you think. It's going to just depend on where it is. In a place like that, religious people feel afraid to come out, and even if they are very religious, I know I've got European team members like that.
I have to agree with you on that, because there is still a religion in Holland, and actually close to where I live, there's I think 2 villages that are still extremely extremely religious. So yeah, I'm not saying that there's no religion at all here. I'm just saying it
isn't part of everyday
influence.
conversation. Right. Right. So
Sorry.
what? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, your audio was a little wacky. I didn't understand what you were saying. So, but yeah,
Max, can we go?
Religion doesn't have influence here.
Well, and I don't know, because I can't speak to the world you live in, or this particular part of the Netherlands you live in, or the socioeconomic circles you run in. I know I've studied some general statistics stuff and seen some bogus statistics stuff on Europe. I suspect much of Europe will be seeing a major religious revival in the next few years, based on some of the sources I look at. And I've known quite a few Europeans grew up the way you did, except they're religious and they describe that world you're talking about as oppressive and uncomfortable, and how much they hate it. Because people treat them badly, and it's socially taboo to talk about their religion and their religious beliefs, which is not
that's not at least that's not in Holland, that's not in Germany, that's not in Denmark, that's not in Austria, and that's not in Switzerland. Those are the countries that I've visited myself. So
okay. Well, I hear from other Europeans, and I hear different. So I don't know where to go from there on that. If what you presuppose is that if a child grows up with no religion, that they just won't be interested in religion or the spiritual or believe in God.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Well, because I'm telling you, there's a lot of religious people in Europe who don't like the secular state at all, because of the gross secularism, and because they do not feel socially free to speak their religious views. But they wind up expressing their religious views at the polls, which is part of why a lot of these nationalist groups are starting to win elections in Europe. We just won again in Austria. The news media didn't report it, but religious voters were a big part of that swing in Austria. The religious voters were a huge part of the swing in the UK with the Brexit vote. In fact, religious voters put the Brexit vote over the top and made it win in the UK. This wasn't put out by the press, but I've got other sources you can look at, British sources that look at these things. The press didn't put it out, but religious voters were largely responsible for the Brexit. And religious voters make up a big part of the nationalist coalitions that you're seeing coming up in France, in Austria, and other places. What I think is happening, maybe to you, I think this has been part of what's happened to Europe, is that the upper classes of your society, the educated elites, the ones who ran the universities, more or less sanitized religion out of the education system and out of the government system, and created a very secular state. And the people who were relatively well off in that, who went to university, who got the nice jobs, a mentality set in that if you're educated, you're not religious, which actually causes educated religious people to go underground. And then you still have a significant portion of the people who aren't in the higher, in the bubble where all the seculars are, who are religious, and they frequently really don't appreciate the secular order. So, I mean, I don't know what your circles are, but
can we bring this back to the United States, Max, where, I think we can all acknowledge that atheists are in the minority here.
Oh, sure. Okay.
So in light of that, let's bring that same discussion stateside. Okay.
Well, I mean, atheism's gotten very popular and very faddish among young millennials, and especially on the East and West Coasts, and in the urban, what they sort of call the blue state areas. I hate that red state, blue state crap, but Atheism's all the rage on the political left among the liberals these days, and
but we're still the minority.
Well, for sure, and always will be. I'm afraid to say, because
so I mean, over here we're not looking at, you know, an oppression kind of, you know, people trying to escape the secular to return to.
Oh yeah, they are. Oh yeah, they are. The anti-secular movement.
Well, then under what pressure though?
Under pressure from ideological atheists who wield enormous political power despite their tiny minority.
But we're in the minority.
That's right, a tiny minority.
How is it power if we're in the minority?
All you need is control of the education system, which you have, and the media, which you mostly have, and the rest goes from there. Just look at the activity of militant organized atheists and all this crap they're doing to try and, you know, I mean, I see the current state of the LGBT movement as a rabidly atheist movement, just because they've turned so hostile to religion and falsely blamed Christians for homophobia, which is a bum rap. And
so churches aren't homophobic?
Homophobia is an inherited trait and is more common among the non-religious than the religious. And non-religious regimes actually tend to oppress gays more than religious ones, especially Christian ones. Your best bet as a gay person is within a historically Christian regime, because it's the Christian religion that teaches tolerance of things like that.
They absolutely.
If that's correct, then can you explain? That's correct. Can you then explain to me why every single theist guest I've had, except for one, was anti-gay? I've had on Pastor Locke. I think you're aware of what he puts out.
I'm not remembering who Pastor Locke is. Is he one of those fundamentalists?
Well, at the moment, I think he might be the most vocal Christian when it comes to the LGBTQ demonization in the US. I think he has over 1 million followers, so people see what he puts out.
Okay, well, I mean, he's not my type of Christian, and I don't know that much about him. You certainly do have very strongly anti-gay Christians. You might consider me a homophobe. I literally don't know. It still remains a fact that secular regimes have a worse record.
Well,
would you consider yourself a homophobe?
No, because I'm not in the least bit afraid of gay people, and I've had gay friends my whole life. Although some turned on me when.
Then why would anybody label you as such?
Oh, just for the crime of being a religious. I've been viciously, nastily, hatefully attacked by many gay people just for existing as a Christian. Anti-Christian bigotry is now normative in gay circles, and that's one of the reasons I will no longer associate with the gay rights movement, even though, like so many Christians, I was very sympathetic.
Do you think that's because they were treated badly by the, Christian element?
No, that's scapegoating, and it's bigotry, and it's wrong. It's a lie, and it's a big lie that's been perpetrated for a long time. Anti-gay sentiment is more common among the non-religious. And
Max, I can at least debunk that for a part. The gay people that I know in the US unanimously say that the only ones are afraid of, are bullied by, is the Christian community.
Well, then your friends are ignorant. Then your gay friends are ignorant bigots and should be called out for it.
No, I don't think so, because it's what I see on Twitter. It's what I see on YouTube. When you look at the people who are the most, if you look at the people who are the most influential, people like Ken Ham, people like Kent Hovind, people like Ray Comfort.
Ken Ham, oh my God! Talking about these shallow media figures who are idiots for the most part.
Okay, but those are the people that are representing group in the US, which are the evangelical Christians, and the evangelical Christians only against.
What about our vice president?
Yeah, Mike Pence.
What about the absolute scientific and historical reality that secular regimes are worse towards gays, because they are? What about
wait, back up. What about Vice President Pence?
I'm not here to talk partisan politics with you. I don't know what about Pence. What do you do?
We're not talking politics. It's I think it's publicly known.
Max, would you like to talk about the Bible?
Are you? Please don't start cherry picking out of the Bible. It's so offensive when dumbass atheists do that.
It's kind of offensive to call us dumbass too. So.
Yeah.
Well,
I think Max, we agreed. I think Max, we agreed to have a civil conversation. So I wouldn't start name calling, because we don't do that with you, and it would be nice if you treat us with the same respect that we treat you with.
Well, then do me a favor and don't just start throwing out random questions like that. I'm supposed to answer.
Well, you said you didn't.
This or that or the other thing. You didn't even.
But you said you didn't.
You didn't even let me answer it. Okay, go ahead.
You said you didn't want to talk about politics, so I'm asking if you want to, base your claims on the Bible, which is admittedly the Christian text that they, base their faith on. Which
routinely atheists come up with the most batshit stupid. If you're going to declare the Bible is a homophobic document based on a few quotes, we'll wind up talking about those quotes for an hour. If you, or at least
okay, let's do it.
Quotes.
Okay,
but I'm going to repeat for you. Science. No. Can I please get this out? Science clearly shows that homophobia is natural, inherited, and genetic, and that atheists do tend to be more homophobic than the religious. Science does, in fact, show this. So your the media scapegoating of evangelicals on this, while not looking at all the homophobia you will indeed find in atheist circles. Including a lot of the alt-right and all the race nationalists, to pin it all on religious people is phony narrative.
Can you wait a minute? Can you link me to those papers that you're quoting now?
Sure, I'll
those in the description.
I'll try and get it to you after the show.
Okay. Max.
So let's. There's one question I want to go back to, because we're veering away from it.
No, because wait a minute. We see Christians being smeared here again. So I'm going to also.
We're not smearing. No, we're not smearing.
No. I want to finish.
If you let me finish, you'll see that I'm going to hand you a tool you should be happy to use, because we were on the Bible. You said cherry picking. Okay. Can you give us the verses that are pro-gay?
Of course not. And why would you expect there to be any in any particular?
Is there anything pro-gay in the Bible?
I'm sorry, what?
Anything pro-gay in the Bible?
I wouldn't know. What an odd question. I guess I'll have to think about that and get back to you. Is there any reason there should be anything pro-gay in the Bible, or
no, because you? No, listen. I'm just asking this because you said that we were going to cherry pick verses.
Sure, and I'll give you one of the biggest.
I want to avoid cherry picking verses, and I want to ask you, at least, give us a clue that the Bible is not anti-gay.
Oh no, the Bible is anti-gay. Being gay is bad for you. I mean, that's pretty much what you'll get out of the Bible. But to note that the Bible is the source of homophobia is garbage, and to note that it's particularly homophobic is garbage. I know those are common things to say. Those are common.
I didn't make the claim. I didn't make the claim that the Bible was the source of homophobia. I just want to know. You said aren't anti-gay. So,
well,
and now you say the Bible is anti-gay.
Let me give you an example.
If the Bible, no, let me finish my statement. If the Bible is anti-gay, are supposed to follow the Bible for Christians supposed to be anti-gay? Bible?
Well, it depends on what you mean by all that. See, a lot of that goes into the assumptions about the words you use. I'll give you a perfect example.
I don't mean anything. I asked you a question. You are a Christian, so you should be able to tell me, for a Christian, if you follow the Bible, should you be anti-gay, or should you go against what the Bible teaches and be pro-gay?
It depends on what you mean by pro-gay or anti-gay. It depends on what you mean by pro-gay or anti-gay. Okay.
Explain how this for you.
The teaching is extremely clear, at least from the Catholic perspective, and from what I would think most mainline Christians, which is that the homosexual act is bad for you and bad for society. You shouldn't do it. That's what a basic sin is. But there's no reason to treat gays as subhuman or mistreat them. And to give you a perfect example of this, they are anti-Christian ideologues love to quote Paul, where he said something about how, yes, you should kill the men who lie with men because they're disgusting and awful. And that verse does say that, and you just keep reading, and then he turns around and tells everybody else there that they're disgusting and they deserve death too. In other words, he was being sarcastic. But they just suck that right out of it. See, if you look at history and human history and anthropology and across cultures and across religions and across no religions, anti-gay is normal in humans. There's a certain subset of humans who always from birth find it gross and icky and disgusting. I could give you evolutionary reasons why they would. But I mean, it turns out the religious influence overall tends to moderate that tendency to pick on the other, the weird faggy. I mean, I got a friend who grew up in India and nowhere near any Christians, and they used to lynch gays there. It's a defensive tendency to make it all about religion. Yes, in the U.S., the biggest the ones against gay rights have typically been Christians, but they've always had lots of non-religious followers who are sympathetic. I've known anti-gay people my whole life, and they weren't all, and by far, most of them weren't particularly religious. And furthermore, and it's extraordinarily important that this not be forgotten, the gay rights movement from the 70s onward until only about 4 or 5 years ago openly courted the Christian vote and tried to get Christian support and succeeded in getting Christian support, majority Christian support, throughout the United States, up through and including gay marriage. And then from the Christian perspective, and this is not just me, it's millions of us, the gay rights people turned around, stabbed us in the back, blamed us for the whole thing in the first place, and began viciously attacking, scapegoating us and mocking us without owning their own crap. The fact is, there would be no gay rights without Christians in the United States. That is a fact. It wouldn't exist as a concept. Yeah.
Can we go back to something that you said? That homophobia is genetic.
Yep.
Right? Okay. So you said that. Wait, hold on. Can I finish, please?
Yeah.
And then that the rates of homophobia are greater among atheists. So by extrapolation, are you saying that atheism is also genetic?
Whoa, that's interesting. Actually, I don't know. Certainly atheist regimes have a terrible record when it comes to gays. What happens is they start out real friendly to them, then they turn on them. And there's lots of examples of that in history. And I did say the non-religious. Not all non-religious are atheists, but the non-religious. Religion tends to be a tempering influence on things like that, what I've seen. But can you be born an atheist? Yes, I think you can be. I think it's rare and unusual, but you can be.
Quick question. Where do you know where the data came from that rates of homophobia are higher among the non-religious?
Well,
or furthermore, that it is genetic? Like, if you're claiming that it is genetic, then there should be a paper that correlates that.
Yeah, I said I'd get it to you after the show. I mean, if I want to remember something right off the top of my head right now, I'll just give you one right now, the one I remember off the top of my head. It's not the only one. Let me just go ahead and search for it. There you go. Okay. Evolutionary Psychology and Anti-Gay Attitudes by Jesse Bering in Scientific American. I'll paste that for you. That's one I have off the top of my head. I can find you more, although I believe there'll be more references in there. And by the way, I would say this finding, which there have been papers to show, shouldn't surprise anybody. I really don't think it should. I've known my whole life there are people that just squick at gay sex. And you may not be one of them, and that's fine. But science shows clearly that a number of people just, regardless of their religious views, just instantly squick at that stuff and are repulsed by it. And it may not be comfortable to hear that if you're a gay person, but it is what it is, and it is not right to put it on religious people. It simply isn't. It's a myth that we created this. I've talked to people from all over the world. I have a gay friend since the 80s. I watched the AIDS crisis go down, for God's sake, where, by the way, the Catholic Church ran all the AIDS hospices, but never mind. It's
Just to throw it out real quick, do you know my domestic situation?
no.
Okay, I live
Married
with
or-
2 women.
Okay, so you're a open relationship or polygamist or what?
We have a relationship, the 3 of us.
Yeah, well, I just wondering what its dimensions were. Some people I've met who are in these relationships, it's all very open and fluid, and
every dimension possible with the 3 people that are in it.
well, enjoy that, I guess. It's your
Well,
business.
just wanted you to know that if you think that I should be anti-gay because I'm an atheist, I live with 2 gay women.
Oh no, I wouldn't. I don't think being an atheist makes you a homophobe any more than being religious does. If we're talking about the what I would call
I would disagree there, just based
Okay.
on what you just claimed about the Bible, because the Bible teaches you to be
Okay,
anti-gay.
no, it doesn't. Oh my God, no, it doesn't.
It doesn't?
No.
What does the Bible say? What does the okay? What you tell me? What does the Bible say?
No, stop interrupting me and let me give you my full answer. The
Okay,
Bible
go ahead.
accepts that anti-gay sentiment is there because it's universal in humans. The Bible tempers how we approach it, but more to the point, smart Christians, educated Christians, Catholic Christians don't just read the Bible and don't just go, oh, look, this verse says this, so we have to do that. Okay, that's your idiot fundamentalists, and that's those idiots with their hands with their Bible in their hand and a loudly stated opinion. You know, within my tradition, the Catholic tradition, and other traditions too, like I can name a bunch of them, Dutch Reformed, for example, there's a scholarly tradition and a way that we approach the scriptures and a way that we interpret things to get our answers. And it's often very deep and very complicated. You can't just whip out a Bible. The people who do that are a specific strain of loudmouth Christians who get way too much attention, like Ken Ham and some of those other people. And I don't disagree with them entirely on the gay thing. I don't agree of how they approach it, because I do think long term that stuff's not good for you or society. I mean, it's still your business ultimately.
How so? How so?
It's a terrible way to raise kids.
How so?
Well, we have abundant data which clearly shows that children need 2 parents and that the father and the mother are both indispensable and unique in the roles they give. And the kind of relationship you're describing is inherently unstable. And
How's, I mean, okay, wait, more so than divorced Christians?
Well, actually, divorce is just as devastating. That's for sure. Maybe more so. I don't know if you could. What's better, to grow up a divorced kid or with unclear parenting in a polyamorous relationship? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I mean, both are tragic from my perspective. I mean, the kids may turn out all right, but it's not the way to bet.
Okay.
Well, I
ahead,
want to
Peter.
jump. I want to jump in because
This is just what the science shows. I mean, you can do whatever you want with it.
okay. Just let me finish. In Holland, being gay is accepted. We have had gay marriage for a long time. gay people can adopt, and gay people can have kids here.
Okay.
And the studies that have been done on that, and those were studies to try and find the bad things that people say were going to happen, all turned out to be very positive. Those people, those children growing up in a gay home with gay parents, don't show up to be any different. The only difference there is that those kids are less likely to judge others.
Okay.
So it could be that there is even a positive part in a kid growing up with gay parents, because they won't have any sort of bias, because for them it's normal to grow up that way. And so the figures show that what you just said is completely untrue, and those were done by very religious organizations in Holland who were trying to find stuff they could put out to show how bad it was, and they couldn't come up with anything.
Well, that's an interesting story you tell. Perhaps it is true. One of the things I've learned about social science data, though, is just how often statistics are manipulated and dishonest. The whole peer review system is melted down. Not just governments, but religious groups, political groups, sectarian interests, commercial interests put stuff out all the time. I'm honestly not sure I believe your statistics, especially because I've seen other statistics on what's actually, well, on what's happening in Europe.
So what you're saying is you don't believe them before you even see them?
No, I said I'm skeptical. Do I not have a right to be skeptical?
Sure.
I am skeptical.
But there's a difference between saying you're skeptical and saying before you even read a single word, I'm saying I don't believe you. That's a little bit different.
Because I'm being skeptical, you're making some very sweeping claims that go directly against other social science data I have seen. So if you want, maybe we can have a flinging match of who has the best social science data. Or you can just ask for my perspective. I've seen a lot of social science data, although we don't have enough yet
What's social science?
Well, actually, I have never looked into the question of children adopted by gay parents in the Netherlands. I've just simply never looked at it. So you can't ask me to have much of an opinion on those studies without having looked at them. I'm very skeptical just because you're painting in such broad strokes and claiming that very religious groups could find no negative effects. And I'm like,
well, that's what the facts are.
That's real social science is rarely that unequivocal.
Well,
but you know, I'm prepared to believe that there are such studies.
But
Max,
I'm still
I am skeptical.
Question.
Just like if I told you I had studies that showed difference, wouldn't you be skeptical?
One quick question, and then Molly gets to jump in.
Sure.
Just want to know what's the difference between science and social science?
Wow.
Because I'm not aware of the term social science.
Well, you've never, social science. Well, I mean, just social sciences are the social sciences. I mean, that's what they're called in the United States. Social sciences are economics, population demographics, polling.
Is there a difference?
Sociology.
Is there a difference between science and social science? That's what I asked.
Well, that's a philosophical discussion in its own. There are scientists who will tell you social science is garbage and not science at all. They're usually like physicists and biologists.
But I'm not talking about what other people think. I want to know, is there a difference between social science and science?
Sure. Well, I mean, let me put it to you this way. I think a lot of what goes under the name social science isn't science at all, but there is such a thing as social science that is legitimate, yes. And it's just another form of science. Although it's not measuring the natural world, which is interesting, but maybe a change of subject. Yeah, okay, so I mean, social science is a form of science, just like biological science is a form of science, and you know, electrochemical science is a form of science. I mean,
So
physics,
it uses the same methods.
well, okay, what do you not understand that there are different fields of science that use different methods?
Yeah, I know, but we have one scientific method. I just want to know if
We
they're
don't
both
have one
using the same method.
scientific method. We don't have one scientific method. No one scientific method exists anywhere. Who told you that? There's no one scientific
Different ones.
Science is a collection of methods. It's actually a subset of philosophy that uses various tools to ask questions. I mean, what you do in particle physics is almost nothing like what you do in economics.
No, but the method.
Yeah,
is
but the
same.
scientific method remains the same.
I'm sorry, guys. No, you need to go back and learn some basic science. No, there's no one scientific method. It doesn't exist.
Okay, yes,
So there's
there are
another-
subspecialties that use the scientific method differently, but the
What is the
scientific method
scientific-
remains the same.
What is the scientific method then? What is the scientific method?
Really?
You're the expert. What is the scientific method? I'm telling you, there isn't one. If there is one, tell me what it is.
Okay, so let's go back to basic science then. Okay, let's go back to basic science. All right. So the development of a hypothesis,
Yeah.
right, starts with everything.
And then a test.
Yes, exactly. So how are you? See, you know this. You know this. You do not need me to explain this to you.
That is not the scientific method. Do I need to get? Okay, I will give you.
What would you call it?
Here, scientific method. I will Google it. I won't use Wikipedia just because Wikipedia.
Well, you know this. You know this, and I know this. I don't think you need to look it up.
Well, no, I do, because apparently what you're saying is dead wrong, and you don't want to hear it. I'm sorry.
How is the development of a hypothesis incorrect?
The development of a hypothesis is perfectly correct. That's not the scientific method.
It's a piece of it.
Here. Well, of course it is, because the scientific method is a collection of tools. There is no one set of method. In fact, there's contrary rules. Here's a real good definition for you from the Stanford Dictionary of Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Whole page of it, pages of it. There is no one scientific method. It'll tell you that. I mean, there's falsification, but people argue over whether or not falsification is even a valid approach. There's all sorts of areas of the social sciences where you can't even do experiments. All you can do is observational science. And the rules for observational science are different. The rules for...
Which is still based on a hypothesis.
Okay, if you think the scientific method is making a hypothesis, then yes.
No, I'm just saying that this starting with the basic tenet of science is observing and then...
Okay, you tell me, if I do a Gallup poll to see how popular is peanut butter, is that science?
No.
Well, that's called social science. It is. Doing polls is part of social science.
No, it isn't.
You're the one who... Okay, so Max, you're the one who's saying that statistics are highly suspect, correct?
Well, they're all suspect.
That's all that's developing is statistics.
Yeah, and statistics is inherently dicey, especially when you get into something like polling, because all the assumptions you start with. I mean, this is basic science. It really is what I'm saying here. This has nothing to do. This is just how basic science is done. When you start asking social science questions like how many, children of single mothers go on to be successful lawyers or whatever, everything you have always. I mean, I know social sciences. I know a lot of scientists, actually. And always your guiding assumptions going in influence the results you get. And also, a lot of people put out phony data, especially in the social sciences. It's real popular. You know this. You see fake statistics all the time. Corporations.
This is why we have peer review.
which has melted down and and is now nearly useless. It's horribly corrupt. I mean, peer review has just completely self-destructed the last 10 years.
So what's the alternative?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
Wait a minute. You just made a claim. You can back up that claim? That
Yeah,
peer review.
Oh yeah, it's in the peer-reviewed journals. They've admitted that peer review has got serious. It's in crisis. We've got papers in peer-reviewed journals admitting that half of.
No. Wait. Where can I find that?
Well, all right.
I mean, in peer-reviewed journals doesn't.
Peer-reviewed journals declaring peer review. All right, I'll give you one. Again, you guys think that you know something about science, but then go out and research what's going on in the sciences, for God's sake.
Oh, you're making a claim. I'm just asking you to back up the claim. If you say that's in peer-reviewed science.
Yeah, right. Well, and send me your unimpeachable, absolutely perfect, done by very religious groups that found nothing.
No. I didn't make a claim.
Yeah, you did.
I didn't make a claim. You made a claim, so you have burden of proof. If you say there are scientific journals that have put this out, then please send me a link to those scientific journals. I have a couple of scientists in the group that support my channel. The group that supports our channel, so I'd like to run that by those scientists to see if if there's actually any merit to that claim.
All right,
I just want to know.
Okay, but since we're doing the atheist, this is a common thing that atheists do to religious people: make us be your monkey and jump. And go immediately find something. I am again going to make. If you're going to make me jump now and go find you right now, I'm not you to get me a reference right now to these studies by quote very religious groups who found none of the predicted negative effects.
I'm not asking you. I'm not asking you to back it up right now. I'm just asking you. Can you send me the link? And you don't have to do that right away. We're talking because I don't want to be distracted. So,
but same thing. I need. Please, can you send me the links to the studies that unequivocally show what you claim they did?
Yes, I will. I will look those up and I will put them in the description. As I told you.
It does get tiring when people haven't, gone and looked for themselves. Yes, I'm telling you straight up, and I'm not bullshitting you. Peer review has melted down in multiple areas of the sciences in a very big way. I'm not telling you that because I'm Christian. In fact, more scientists are Christians than atheists. And I have a lot of scientist friends, and the disaster in scientific peer review and in other areas where they use peer review is enormous. It's incalculable. There's whole areas of the sciences now where you cannot trust a single, there was I'll send this to you later, okay? Because I'm not going to go jump and find everything right now, but I will send it to you. There was a study, this was published in Science or Nature, I believe, that found that one half of all medical studies published in the peer review are non-replicable and non-valid on publication. That's half of it is just non-replicable and not valid science on publication. The remaining 50%.
I'll post a link, even though I don't have the burden of proof, but I'll post a link to a claim you just made. I'll post a link to a claim you just made.
Yeah, and I'm gonna call right now.
No, listen. Wait a minute. Listen to a claim you just made about most scientists being Christians. When it comes to the USA, I think over 95%. I'm not exactly sure about the number, but I think over 95% of at least I think even of all scientists are atheists.
Please
at this moment,
please prove your claim.
Yes, I said I'm going to find that link and I'll post that in the description.
Yeah, you won't be able to,
even though
propaganda claim. I already know where you're going to get it from. Can I predict what your source is going to be? Because I'm familiar with this totally bullshit claim.
But you can go check the link and go check.
I know. And
listen, Max. Listen. You can go check the link and see where it's coming from. I'm not going to post a link. I'm not going to post a link to a magazine or a newspaper article or whatever, because that's to me that doesn't say anything.
Yeah. Okay. So I reject the idea that I am here making claims. I make not a single claim here. I make observations based on my knowledge, and if you wish to, you may politely ask me if I will provide you some references, and I may do so. I have made not one claim here, because claim assumes that you are the judge and jury, and I do not. Yes, it does, because I made no claim. I make no claims at all. I made.
You just said most scientists are Christians. That was what you just said. People can go back.
Actually, I believe I said more scientists are Christians than atheists.
Yes.
Which I would be willing to back that up. Probably worldwide. We would have to see. But stop this combative atheist game of making everything a supposed claim that assumes that I have a burden of proof to you. I have no burden of proof of any kind to you. You're not my judge. You're not my jury. We're equal in this relation. We're equals in this relationship, are we not? If I start making
we had okay. Listen. We had a conversation on Twitter.
I don't have a burden.
We had a conversation on Twitter where you jumped in. You liked a tweet of mine. Do you remember? And that was about burden of proof. Do you remember the tweet you liked?
Could be. No, of course I don't remember it. And the fact that I liked it.
I was asked by a member, I think a member of your organization. I won't name his name because he's not here and he cannot defend himself. I was asked, do atheists have a burden of proof when they make a claim? And I responded to him, everyone who makes a positive claim has the burden of proof. That goes for atheists and theists. That goes for everyone. And that's a tweet you like.
Yeah, I do remember liking it. Of course, one likes a tweet for multiple reasons. Because
this was a tweet about burden. That was a tweet about burden of proof only.
And I liked it because I wanted to remember it. Because I don't think you live by it. I really don't. I've never met an atheist who does. So no, and burden of proof is a fairy tale that has been mostly promulgated by ideological atheists. Nobody has any burden of proof to you. Who the hell do you think you are? I have opinions just like you have opinions. I have information that has led me to my opinions just like you have. I don't ever have a burden of proof to you for any reason unless we're going to court. I believe what I believe for the reasons I believe them, just like you. And if I make a random observation,
I won't force you. I won't force you. I won't force you to have.
I'm not done. I'm not done.
Yes, but you're fighting something that I don't think.
No. I will not accept any atheist claim that I have any burden of proof to him at any time for any reason.
No, you don't.
All right, and that includes
throughout. Can I agree? Can I agree with you and then just stop here and you stop defending something you don't need to defend because I already agreed with you?
Okay.
You do not listen to what I'm stating. Okay. You do not have the burden of proof.
Yeah.
But if you make a claim and you cannot back up that claim sufficiently, then I don't have to believe what you say. That's the only difference.
Well, what this
and you don't have to back it up. But then please don't expect me to believe what you are saying is actually true.
Sure. Although you should be adding the rejoinder there that you don't have to believe if it hasn't been sufficiently proved to your individual arbitrary standards, whatever they are. That actually means
if evidence is conclusive and concording to just one specific thing that you're addressing, then I have to accept that evidence. There's no way about it. I have to accept it.
Throughout this I mean, people, I haven't found that in this conversation. I'm sorry.
I'm an atheist. I don't believe any of the God claims so far presented to me. If someone comes to me with, if someone comes to me with sufficient evidence that a God exists,
sufficient evidence for you.
Yes.
I mean, I have looked at the evidence for God. I find it overwhelmingly convincing.
Do you accept anything without sufficient evidence for you?
Nobody does.
Okay. So why is it bad if I do it?
No. You see, here's the thing. This burden of proof nonsense is a fairy tale. It truly is. I have no burden to you. I come to my conclusions just like you do. I'm as capable of thinking on my own and being skeptical as you are. I don't have to prove anything to you, to any of you. Even if we're just having a polite conversation, let me school you on something. Maybe this is an American thing, or maybe it's a Christian thing. But when you're just having a supposedly polite conversation, and you start making observations based on things you know to be true, and someone immediately says, "You've made a claim, you must prove it," that's extraordinarily rude and presumptive behavior. It truly is.
No, I don't think so.
Yes, it truly is.
No, I don't think so.
Because you
okay. Let's clarify. Let's clarify. If you tell me something based on your observations, do you want me to believe you?
It's not my job to make you believe.
It's not your job.
Totally
That's not what I
to make you believe anything.
It's not your job, and that's not what I asked. If you make a claim, do you want me to believe you on that particular claim, any claim?
I'm not sure why I would claim anything to you in the first place. Do I owe you something? I mean, honestly, if I make an observation...
Max, don't dodge the question. Don't dodge the question. Because now you want to dodge the question because the answer is awkward. No. If you tell me something, do you want to believe? Do you want me to believe you? Yes or no? It's a simple question. Do you want me to believe you?
Actually, no, I don't give a shit whether you believe me or not. Actually, I don't give a shit if you believe me on anything in this conversation. I really don't.
Why not? Why not?
Why do I care? I honestly, I've answered your questions politely enough, although you've, often turned around and I may make a general observation and then you instantly try to like, oh, he's made a claim and now we need him to go get references. Like, wait a minute, are we having a conversation?
Because I want to, because I care for what's true and what isn't true. And I want to believe as much true things as I can. And
me too.
As least false things as I can.
Good.
So if you're going to tell me something that's surprising to me, yes, of course, I want to know if that's true.
Okay.
And that's not about you. That's not about you. And that's not about the fact that you are the one that I'm talking to right now. It's about the thing you say at that particular moment. If I think that's interesting and I want to know if it's true, you are the one telling me about it. So you're the first guy I need to go to and ask, where can I find something that backs this up? Because I want to know.
Yeah, and in a polite conversation, maybe the person's got their references handy and maybe they don't.
Isn't this a polite conversation?
It hasn't really been. I mean, it turned impolite as soon as you started declaring I had made claims. Again, I reject that kind of language. That's in fact, that's immediately hostile and immediately putting you in the judge seat.
Is this a claim?
Of truth. I mean, and you did just make a claim and didn't let me finish, by the way. You made an absurd claim, which I already, let me finish. You made an absurd claim, which is already debunked. It's something like 95% of American Christian Scientists are atheists. I know because there are so many fake stats that come out of movement atheism. You're probably going to be referencing 1997 informal survey in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, which is a totally non-scientific poll. It's 20 years out of date at this point and was never scientific in the first place. We have much social science on what scientists look like. And while atheists are overrepresented, they are a minority worldwide. They're a minority unofficially. Atheists.
Is that a claim, Max?
It's an observation, and I'm not on trial to you and your jury, but if you're nice to me, I'll maybe find time to go look this up if you can't bother to look it up for yourself. I suggest you look it up for yourself.
I'm just asking if
because
I'm just asking if that's if I'm just asking for clarification.
No,
is this something you claim?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm
so
not.
why did you bring it up?
I'm not letting you use that word claim. It is an observation.
Okay, so
why?
So why bring up observations if they're not a claim? Is it even useful?
It's not my job to prove everything to you and your personal satisfaction until
I already said it's not your job. I'm just asking you, why do you bring stuff up if you don't care if anyone believes it, if you don't care if anyone checks if it's true? You don't care about anything, yet you bring stuff up. And I'm just asking, why do you bring stuff up if you don't care if people even hear it?
People. It's so weird how you phrase.
People are going to listen to this.
Yes,
people are going to listen to this.
They are
it's
going
not
to
just
listen
us.
to this. They are going to listen to this. They're going to listen to fake pseudoscience claims you've made. They're going to be listening to you immediately acting in a supposedly friendly conversation as if you are the judge of reality and I must instantly provide, or I must provide references for you.
I'm not a judge of reality. I just asked you a question. If you're not interested,
I've already
if you're not interested,
I have
if you're not interested,
no. Here's the deal. I've given you information. If you're polite to me, maybe
why?
I'll give you the time.
Why?
Because you asked.
Why do you give me information?
We were supposedly having a polite conversation, and you were asking questions.
Yes.
So we were having a polite questions, and I was answering your question.
But if you give me information, and I want to check that information, is that a bad thing?
It depends on the context, especially like I said, when you go out there and declare as if and start putting words in my mouth. Actually, when we're just having a polite conversation, because we may be having a polite conversation and I may get something wrong and I may go look up the data and say, no, I said it wrong. Here's what I really meant. That's what a polite conversation looks like. You know, how about something like this? Hey, when you have a chance, I'd like to look down the numbers on that. I mean, because that's all I might owe you. Or I might just be able to say, go look it up on the internet, because you can. You can look up everything I've said and Google it yourself within seconds. I mean, honestly, everything I've said.
And for some of the things you have said, I have already done that and found different things. So
you have
either you have a different source, which I would like to check, and if you don't want to share it, okay, then you don't want to share it.
I have multiple sources.
Problem.
No, excuse me. I have multiple sources.
So have I.
If you want to, you may, in our polite conversation, politely say, here's some things I would like you to run. I'd like to look down at them. But stop pretending I've made claims like I'm on trial, like you can dissect every word I say. That's not a polite conversation. That's you grilling me. And all we were supposed to be doing is having a polite conversation. I'm telling you the things I know as I remember them. And if you want some references, I'll think about how much time and how much time am I supposed to spend. Everything I have said is that there are references to back up what I've said. Maybe you've got counter statistics. And if you've got counter statistics, then if we're being scientific, we'll have to go look at those sources and find who we find more credible. I'll tell you right now, though. I mean, if you're looking at a what you're saying is that truth is an argument from authority? No. Who's more credible? Fact, those of the ones doing the argument from authority are you guys who want references for everything. But let's get but no. Do you not know what argument of authority? No, I don't want references from people. I want references from studies. I want references from papers. I don't care who wrote them. Good. And so You don't care who wrote them. Okay.
No.
You don't.
As long as they're peer reviewed, I'm fine with them.
Peer reviewed. Okay. We'll pin you down on that. That you're going to say right now, if it's peer reviewed, you don't care who wrote it, you believe it. Is that what you? Is that in fact? I would be rude and say, is that a claim you're making? But it's not a claim.
If you can read the study and how it's done, and then can read what the peer review says about it. You don't need to have the actual name of the scientist doing it.
You need
because
to know
because the data is convincing and not the person who wrote it down.
So did. Can I pin you down? So you say you don't care who the author is. If it's a peer-reviewed study, you'll believe it. Am I pinning you down now? Is that what you said? Because I will give you.
If it's able to be replicated, that's the hallmark of good science. Is if it's able to be replicated.
That is one of the many parts of the scientific method, indeed. Which is why one of the things I told you, and if you're polite to me and you can't find it, because this is easy to find, it's been published in multiple peer-reviewed journals, that half of what gets published isn't replicable. That's part of the meltdown I just told you about. It's not in every field, but it's huge and it's big and it's all over the place. It's a scandal, and I didn't make it up. And religious people didn't make it up. Peer review's in big trouble and everybody knows it. Where are you guys that you don't know this? There's some areas where it's still pristine, but like astronomy is probably okay, but holy shit, man.
I don't know where others are. I'm spending my time with actual scientists. I'm spending my time with science writers, and I've never heard anyone make a claim that comes even close.
I made no claim. I reported to you what's appeared in the peer-reviewed journals. You can go and look for yourself. A name that is handy for me at the moment.
Wait a minute. Let's cut this short. If it's not a claim, then we don't need to know it.
No,
because then it's not interesting.
No, it's a report. You may investigate the report on your own or not. If I have time, maybe I'll help you if you're polite. It's a report. You may ignore the report.
I don't care if it's not a claim you're making. Then why should I care if you link to it or send me the link or whatever? If you don't care, why should I?
But good enough. Don't care. It's a report. It's information. It could be useful to you. There you go. That's all you get. Except I'll give you a name. Ioannidis is one of them to look up. It's not a claim. I don't care about names, and I don't care about things that you don't actually claim to be true. If you don't claim it true, then why should I care? Hey, you know what? I just reported something important to you. You can either investigate or not, and you can be polite or not. I don't owe you.
I am polite. If you say if you're saying that you're making a claim and you want to actually back it up with evidence, then I'll look.
What bizarre rules of discourse do you run by? By the way, I don't believe that you are just a natural atheist. You're very well trained. You really are. I've made no fucking claim. And if you were actually a scientist,
that's actually a compliment, Max. Coming from you, that's actually a compliment, because I'm only doing this
I paid you
I think
I thought we were having a polite conversation.
You haven't been polite throughout the conversation. You've been
I have.
I don't know. Starting with a snippy attack on Christians.
So far, Max, we're the only ones who haven't used expletives or insults.
Oh, good for fucking you. Aren't you proud? I give you a medal for being the polite atheist while you've been rude and interrupty throughout the entire conversation.
I'm just stating that because you always state that we are the ones that are rude and we are the ones that are insulting and we are the ones that have no morality. And during this conversation, you're proving with your attitude that it's the opposite.
Okay. All right, if that's your way, as I told you at the beginning, I go out of my way to act the way I perceive atheists acting and to mimic some of the most famous atheists. And what I notice is atheists.
Well, you can mimic everyone you want.
Our
But
whole
in
team
this
does.
in this conversation, you have two polite atheists
No,
and
you
one
weren't polite.
rude theist.
Well, you're entitled to that opinion. Mollier was
No, it's not.
nowhere
That's
near
not an
as rude
opinion.
as
That's
you
not an
were.
opinion because this is recorded and people can go back and can hear you use
Good.
the words you use.
Oh,
Can
okay.
we,
You hear that I
gentlemen?
swore? No. You can have the opinion that I was rude. It's my opinion that you were both rude to me from the very beginning with your snippiness and your condescension. And then your constant, you especially, sir, and your constant interrupting and your
Peter.
constant acting as if I'm on trial to you and your audience. I
No,
am
you're not.
not. And all these lectures about claims, you don't do that even in a scientific conversation. You don't do that to a colleague. And if a colleague makes some observation about biology
But
or
we're not,
something, and you say,
Max,
"Oh, is that a claim? Do you have
we're not,
reference?"
Max,
No.
we're not colleagues. And I
Well,
already told you if
we're not,
if
and
you
you're not
if you don't make a claim and if you don't want us to believe you, then
I
I'm
don't
fine with you not backing anything up you
not
say,
back
and
anything up.
I
I've got
can
no
I can
obligation to.
I
I've
can
got no
I can
obligation
dismiss it.
to. But you can
You
dismiss
don't.
it, right? Go ahead, dismiss it. I literally don't care. I
Yeah.
gave you information that's solid. I gave you a
No, you
report.
didn't. No, you didn't.
Okay, well, I did.
No, you didn't.
Okay.
If you're going to give me information that's solid, then you're going to give me the papers that back up
Because
what you said.
I'm your
I
student.
won't use the word claim. I won't use the word claim anymore from here on. I'm just going by what you said since you don't make claims. So if you say anything, and you want us to think that what you're saying is true, then it should be easy for you to demonstrate to us that it's true. If you don't care about it, it's true. Okay, so why should I care?
Don't care. I literally don't care whether you care. I don't give a shit whether you care, because I don't even think you're an honest interlocutor. And as soon as you, I truly do not. I don't think you're interested in any of this. If you were a scientist and you got this report on what's going on in peer review, you would immediately say, really? Where can I find the references for that? You wouldn't expect me to immediately jump like a monkey to get them for you.
I didn't expect
I don't
that.
think we are.
Especially because I gave you enough information to go look it up yourself. Or
I told you twice, Max, I told you twice now, I don't expect you to jump and give me the information right away. I told you I'm very happy with you sending me the links, and I'll put them in the description if you send me the links in DM in Twitter. I don't have a problem with that. And you can take a week, and you can take a month, and you can take a year for all I care.
Actually, at this point, I will never send you any references. You're a rude prick.
Okay, so then we can dismiss all your claims as being, and we can dismiss all your claims as being not true, unless you can back them up and show us that they're actually true.
This is my last question for you. You can dismiss all my claims as not true if I don't provide you with references. Is that a general rule you live with by your life? Or is that just a special one for this so-called friendly conversation?
No,
I wouldn't call it friendly if you're calling Peter a prick here.
He's been a prick from the beginning while pretending to be nice. So were you. Acting like Christians owe you an explanation. Holy cow, man.
Would you say that you were being nice to begin with when you were talking about how you made a generalized statement about the Dutch right from the beginning?
I thought I was just making a joke there. Oh my God, because it had started friendly. It would be nice if people like you would admit that gay rights only happened by getting Christian support in the United States. It really would. In any case, at this point, I'm not giving you...
Sorry, what?
It's a simple fact. Gay rights wouldn't have existed without Christian support, and won't exist much longer if they continue shitting on Christians who gave them those rights. Now, I made no claims here. I can back up for an honest interlocutor who is polite, any of them. You're not one of them. It was nice meeting you, but you're both pretty damn typical paint-by-numbers cultist atheists. Bye-bye, and God bless.
Okay. Well, at least now I don't have to type it out. People in the chat, I think it was Steve. Yeah, Steve. Steve, I'm happy to do an after show. No problem. Give us about half an hour, I guess, and then we'll do an after show. I think it pretty much went how I expected, because I told a couple of people what would happen, and exactly that happened. So, Molly, tell me, you're new on the channel. What do you think? Did you like it?
I'm slightly okay. So I'm a little at a loss because I've never heard the word polite used so many times in an impolite manner.
Yes.
Intelligent as cannot edgewise to ask a question. I actually wanted to ask him several things about his broad statements regarding all atheists being quote unquote militant, which I wanted him to define. And I also wanted him to talk about the fact that, you know, he's referring to fundamentalist Christians as though they're outside of his scope, but yet he's referring to only the quote unquote militant atheists. So I wanted to discuss with him as to whether he agreed that there was a bell curve in both subsets of society. However, so I'm a little frustrated, Peter.
Well, I told you up front that we would be going, to be frustrated with all of this. I had a hope that we could have a decent conversation, and I had a hope that we could end this at least with everyone still in the conversation that started the conversation. But it turns out that it takes two atheists to end the conversation, because the theist freaks out in a decent conversation. I don't know what else to say.
I would just, I guess I'd like to point out that at no point did either one of us refer to him in any disrespectful manner. But I think it's fairly obvious that that was not the case on his part.
I have to smart. Caitlin is in the chat, and she said we were both pricks. Caitlin is who we talked to this afternoon, I think, if I'm correct. So if Caitlin, if you're still listening, if it is you, because yeah, KC, yeah, sure. She was having us on. Yeah, I'm at a loss. I tried to have a decent conversation with him, knowing full well that at least so far everything I've seen from him is that he can't have a decent conversation. So what I expected happened, and at least I did my best not to have let it end this way. You didn't get a word in.
I didn't, and the thing is, I didn't feel that it would contribute at that time, because he wasn't listening. So it was just contributing to the chaos at that point.
Yeah.
I had points to make. It just isn't. It isn't a back and forth discourse. So.
Yeah. So people are asking for an after show. I don't. We haven't discussed this up front. Do you have time to do an after show?
Yes, tentatively, I think I can do that.
Okay, so I told people in the chat already, give us about half an hour, so that at least we can do a short recap, because that's what we usually do. I want to invite everyone who's in the chat. So I see at least Godless Engineer, Steve McRae, people who are usually coming on. Guys, come on later. I'll give you the link to join, and then you can join for an after show, because I think we have a lot to talk about. We're going to end the stream here. Have a short recap, and yeah, watch my timeline on Twitter. I'll tweet out when we're going to start out the after show, and if people want to join, my DMs are open. DM me, and I'll send you the link to the after show.
Sorry, guys.
Thanks everyone. Thanks everyone for listening in on this one. Special thanks to BJ Price for moderating our chat for us, because that's a very nice tool to have, having someone having an eye on the chat all the time. And so we'll see you all next time. Thanks, Molly, for joining and
Thanks,
being
Peter.
the civilized atheist you wanted to be. No, I'm kidding.
Silent out of necessity.
Okay, we see you all later, and if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe, and follow us on Twitter at MTGGGFI, and that stands for Mind the Gap, Gonna Go For It. That's our channel Twitter account. So see you all next time. Bye bye.